Cracked is one of the newer Switch accessory manufacturers out there. They made a pretty big splash last year with the release of the Nitro Deck, offering a larger, more comfortable way of using your Switch in handheld mode, and now they have a new release with the Neo S controller. This is a smaller, more pocket-sized style controller, something that's oftentimes associated with being a little bit more retro in mind, because it very much evokes the kind of style you'd see from like the NES and SNES days, not having handlebar grips. And it comes in a variety of different styles. In fact, they actually sent me a couple different colors. I have this clear one here, a retro-styled one that is clearly inspired by the Famicom, and this fancier Pope Art one called Blossom that is probably my favorite of the three as far as just looks go. And there's a whole bunch of different options they have for these. Now, if you saw my review of the Nitro Deck last year, you'll know that I was one of the people that walked away a little bit more mixed on it. I think there was a lot of potential in that controller, and there were some great aspects of it, but the other parts that for me just missed the mark a bit, and that's kind of the story here too. There's some stuff about the Neo S controller that I really enjoy, and a few things that I think are just a little bit off about it. So let's dive into it, and I want to start by talking about button and stick quality, which is actually one of the things about the controller that I, for the most part, really do enjoy. All of the front-facing stuff feels great. Sticks have a good tension on them, D-pad feels great, ABXYs are good. Where it loses me a little bit more are the shoulders. L and R have a pretty straightforward, crisp, just clicky register, which is nice. The ZL and ZR, on the other hand, and this was something with the Nitro Deck as well, but I actually think it bothers me a little bit more on this one. It reminds me a little bit of the DualShock 3. It just has this very soft, mushy feeling at full press that I personally don't really care for. Now, because this is a Bluetooth controller, it does work on more than just the Switch, but Switch is definitely, I think, marketing-wise, the main push here, and that includes the fact that, you know, for the main layout, you have plus and minus, you have a screen cap button, and the CRKD logo that acts as a home button. You can, over Bluetooth, also use this on iOS, PC, and Android. Also worth noting that while this is a Bluetooth controller, you can also use it wired with the Switch by just plugging in the USB-C at the top. It does come with a cable, although it is a very short one. Honestly, especially for living room setups, if you want to use it wired, I feel like you're going to end up having to pull out another cable that you have that has a bit better reach to it. But if you're sitting fairly close to where your Switch is docked, the one they provide can work. On top of all the traditional buttons and sticks, there are also the addition of a pair of back buttons. These are remappable. All the buttons on the controller are actually remappable using their app, which is something we'll talk about. But the back buttons do have the added benefit of also being able to remap actual full macros too. So if you want to have one of these act as, you know, hitting a particular combination of buttons in succession, these can do that. Now, while I overall like the buttons and sticks, especially on the front of the controller, one area that does lose me a little bit on this, and this is another thing similar to the Nitro Deck, is the ergonomics of the controller. Given this is already a little bit of an uphill battle, because generally speaking, most controllers of this style are going to be less comfortable than traditional full grip controllers. That is just the trade-off you're getting when you go for this more portable style. This does have little light grooves on the back, so there's a very small contour that you can wrap your fingers around that does help with this a bit. But actually, where I really have problems with this isn't so much the grip directly, as it has to do with stick placement. Similar to the Nitro Deck, I find that with the D-pad, for instance, this is actually a pretty nice placement and is comfortable to use. The left stick, on the other hand, because it's so close to the edge and isn't using a traditional grip style, ends up making your thumb feel a good bit cramped. Now, there is the argument that, you know, with this style controller, I feel like a lot of people tend to gravitate wanting to use this type with retro games, and so the D-pad being the more comfortable of the two to use is a plus in that sense. But if you are going to use this for games where you want to use the left stick a lot, I did find that to just be not quite as comfortable as I was like. The right stick is fine, it's closer into the body, so it actually works out. And then ABXY, yeah, they're closer to the edge like the left stick are, but it's not as big of an issue there because that's just for pressing, not for tilting and moving around. Something also worth noting about this that immediately surprised me when I first opened it up, this is a much larger controller than I thought it was going to be. You know, seeing pictures of this in a Void without other things for size comparison, I was picturing in my head something along the lines of like the 8-bit Do, or more recently the Hyperkin pixel art, other kind of flat, small retro style controllers that can fit comfortably in a pocket. And this is actually a good bit larger than all of those. It is still small enough that you can fit it in a pocket, depending on the pocket, but I would say that this is probably the largest in this kind of class and style of controller that I have used personally. Something related to this that I do find as an upside though is, while the body is bigger, so are the sticks. This is a taller stick head than you traditionally see on these kind of flatter controller designs, allowing for a greater range of motion and better precision in those games where stick travel distance can really be important. So that is a nice bonus. That does impact the portability a little bit. You're definitely going to feel the sticks get tilted and pushed around a lot more if you put them in your pocket, but in terms of their actual functional use in games, in my mind, this is a bonus. Now, getting into additional special features and bonus things, there's really three main categories I want to break this into. And that's kind of the traditional features you see on a lot of Switch Pro controllers. What is lost or maintained on this? What additional kind of pro features it offers as far as additional things like button remapping, and then the collector aspect, which is something that Cracked themselves really emphasize. Traditional special features, things maintained. It does have rumble, not the same kind of rumble you're going to see in first-party accessories, but it does feature a rumble that is also customizable between 3 different settings. Generally speaking, the rumble on this is that kind of fast rumble that has that little bit of a high-pitched sound to it. This does maintain motion control, so that's a big plus for those games that take advantage of that. No NFC reader, which is pretty standard for most third-party controllers. Not a lot of people are too worried about scanning amiibo. The controller is able to wake up the Switch from sleep mode once you have done an initial pairing with it. You just have to hit the home button for a couple seconds, and bam, the Switch will turn on. And it does have an auxiliary port that allows you to hook up a wired headset, though like with many other third-party controllers, this is only functional when the controller is actually hardwired into the system's dock, not if you're using it in Bluetooth mode. Now, as for some fancier features, there is a Cracked app that allows you to do some additional customizations on this. Like I mentioned earlier, you can adjust the vibration between a couple different settings. You can remap any of the buttons that you want, not just the back buttons, but also all the ones on the front and shoulders, though the back buttons do have that extra bonus of doing actual macro inputs. Though it's important to note that you don't actually do the programmed macros in app. That's something that you handle on board with the controller using a program button located on the back. One other special feature it has that's kind of hidden a little bit because it doesn't have a dedicated button, it does actually offer turbo functionality. It just requires that you do a specific button combination press of ZL and minus. You also have the ability to adjust the trigger sensitivities, so if you want it to read as a full push immediately once you apply an 80 degree of pressure, that is an option. And for sticks, there's no in-depth stick sensitivity customizations, like how much it accelerates in different directions, but you do have the ability to turn off the dead zones on it, so inputs are read immediately upon tilting the stick. Also worth noting, these are Hall effect sticks, so if you are very much afraid of stick drift and Hall effect is something that is a must for you in your Switch controller, this does checkmark that box. One other quick thing worth noting is that this does have swappable stick heads as well. They just pop off real easy. It does not ship with any immediate alternate stick options. However, they do sell an accessory kit, and this is the same one that's used for the Nitro deck. So if you own a Nitro deck, you could even take the stick heads off that and put it on one of these if you wanted to. And this is actually one thing that I want to highlight about the different designs that might not occur to you when first looking at them and ordering them. Your design choice not only impacts the visual style of the controller itself, but they do also ship with different stick head options as well. For instance, this clear one right here has convex sticks that have little bumps on them, which works but has never really been my personal preference, whereas the Famicom design, for instance, has the more Switch style ones where it's very lightly convex in the middle, but also has this ring around the edges. And as another example, the Blossom controller just ships with full-blown concave sticks. So that's one thing worth noting. If you really care about the shape of your stick heads, when shopping for these, pay attention to which stick head ships with the controller you're ordering. They do sell separate kits, but that is, of course, going to cost you more. And that kind of leads into the third feature part I want to talk a little bit about. And this is something that honestly doesn't really matter that much to me, but it's a big part of how they're marketing this controller. And I know there are people out here that care about this kind of thing. Collectability. Not only do these controllers come in a variety of designs, some of which I think look wonderful. I love the look of the Blossom controller. There's some other Pope Art ones that look really nice. There's other clear options, including stuff like an Atomic Red. Design-wise, they really have some great looking controllers. And another way they try to really amp this up is that the Cracked app has a way of tracking all the different controllers you own, and in fact, they all have RFID chips in them, so you can tap them with your phone, and that not only registers the controller as yours and lists it as something that you own in the app, but even tells you the production line number of the controller and its rarity value. This is all kind of stuff that personally goes over my head. I just care about how the controller looks and feels to use firsthand, but if you're the type where you really like grabbing stuff and you want to have that little extra badge that tells you, hey, this is a rarer one for one reason or another, that's something these offer. Overall, I think the Neo S controller is a solid controller. It's not my absolute favorite. There's again just some stuff about this that I think is a great hit, and other stuff that just misses a little bit. Front-facing buttons and sticks feel wonderful. Shoulders lose me a little bit. The ergonomics of it lose me a little bit, at least when you're focused on using the left stick. D-pad, on the other hand, works out great. And I think one of the things that really does knock it out of the park is they're just visually very nice looking controllers, and the build quality feels good too. I mean, the materials it's made out of, the plastics, all that kind of stuff feels solid. And in fact, I expected this to be a much lighter controller. It's certainly not one of the heaviest heaviest out there, but for its relatively small size, even though it is larger than some of the similar flat controllers, it has a decent heft to it that feels good in the hand. If you're really into the collector aspect of things and you care a lot about aesthetics, there's some great bonuses here as well. Overall, solid controller, just misses the mark in a couple different places. If you are interested in grabbing any of these, any of the different designs that they have, I do have links posted down below in the description. I think I'm actually going to be revisiting this fairly soon in a follow-up video where I take a look at this and going head-to-head against a lot of other similar pocket-sized style controllers. So if you want to see that, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out. As always, if you enjoyed this video, hit the thumbs up button to let me know, and I will see you guys later.